Hello. Can you hear me? Yes. Great. Wonderful. I think we're going to get started. My name is Barbara Paris-Gifford, and I'm a curator here at MAD. I work a lot with the jewelry collection and adornment also. So we're just so happy and pleased to have all these jewelry lovers here this week. I wanted to tell you of a few things that are going on at MAD, since you're jewelry lovers and you might want to know. In April, we're going to be opening a new exhibition looking at the intersection between studio and contemporary jewelry and queerness. That opens April 20th. In May, there will be our annual Mad About Jewelry sale, so that's something to sort of keep an eye out for. And if you're all interested in studio and contemporary jewelry, we have a new sort of program called Jewelry Circles, where you can join a group and we do activities throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, we have selection night, where we select a piece of jewelry for the collection. So a great deal of the activity of that group is learning about MAD's collection of jewelry, which consists of over 1,200 pieces. So it's a really fun experience. And yeah, we love jewelry people. It's a big part of who we are in our history. And we're just so thrilled that you're here with us today. So with that, I'm going to introduce Bella Naiman.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here for day 2 of New York City Jewelry Week. My name is Bella Naiman. As Barbara Gifford said, I'm one of the co-founders of New York City Jewelry Week. You just saw JB Jones, the other co-founder. This is a working day for us, so as you can see, we are running around. So this year, our theme for New York City Jewelry Week is iconography, past, present, and future. And I hope that as you enjoy the programs throughout the week, you keep that in mind. We like to celebrate not only past icons, but future icons as well. And so, as you all know, because you're here, our schedule of events is live and on our website. If there's anything you're interested in coming to that is sold out, please don't let that deter you. Feel free to show up anyway. So with that, excuse me. Also during the break, please stop by the MAD store. MAD has been an incredible partner to us. They are our official museum partner, and we would not be able to host this event without MAD or any of our sponsors, actually. So we thank the museum and our sponsors very much. With all of that being said, you are in for a real treat this morning. Our conversation is called Upholding Traditions, a conversation with Indigenous jewelers. The moderator today is Christian Allaire. Christian is an Ojibwe from I'm a bit nervous. Nipissing First Nation in Ontario, Canada. He currently works as a senior fashion and style editor at Vogue, where he often writes about Indigenous fashion. He has published his first book, The Power of Style, How Fashion and Beauty Are Being Used to Reclaim Cultures, with Annick Press in 2021. I would like to welcome to the stage Christian and the incredible panelists that you will hear from today.
They were supposed to follow me, and no one followed me.
We're all nervous.
Another round of applause for our wonderful jewelers. Thank you so much for being here, everyone, on this fine, what day are we today? Tuesday. So it's really rare to get this much talent in one room, so I'm personally very excited to chat with everyone. I see some familiar faces in the crowd, too. Love that. So I don't want to introduce everyone. I would rather everyone introduce themselves. So if we could just start with your names and maybe where you're from. Let's start with there. Maybe Jeremy, we can start with you.
Oh, thank you, Christian. I'm Jeremy Arviso. I'm Diné, Hopi, Aquinnah Wampanoag, and Tohono O'odham from Arizona. Born and raised in Phoenix, and I am happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Tania Larsson. I'm Gwich'in and Swedish. I live in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories in Canada and in Jersey City. And I was born and raised in France.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Vanderhoop, Hidluja Huckleberry Woman. I was born on Martha's Vineyard. My dad is Aquinnah Wampanoag, and my mom is Haida from Haida Gwich'in, Gwich'in's Massa Inland Eagle Clan.
Yat everybody, my name is Nanibaa Beck. Tatna Nishlank was a Slanabash's Chi. I was, my hometown, I like to say my whole one is Pinyon, Arizona. My hometown is Phoenix, but I currently reside in Tucson, Arizona.
Good morning. I'm Jennifer Younger. I am Tlingit, Eagle Kagwantan, and I reside in Sitka, Alaska.
And you've already heard about me, so I won't talk about me. So what I'm really excited about this group here is, so I cover designers for Vogue a lot, and so I'm introduced to a lot of different talent from different regions and different styles, different mediums, and everyone here on this panel really works in different, oh no. Okay, there we go. Everyone here really works with different materials, and the inspiration for their work is very different, and it really reflects where they come from, and so that's what I'm really excited to chat with everyone about. So to start, I guess I kind of want to get a sense of your work for everyone. So maybe, again, Jeremy, we can start with you. Tell us a little bit about the jewelry you create, the materials, and the materials that you use.
Sure, I'll set it off. I am actually very, very new to jewelry and never thought I would be designing jewelry or even sitting here with these amazing designers, so I'm very honored to be here. I kind of got into it as a hobby and just something to, like therapy, really. Something creative, something different than what I'm normally doing. I'm an apparel designer. A painter, a brand identity designer. Sometimes it can get a little boring sitting in front of a computer and just watching things move. I really wanted to work with my hands more, and jewelry is it's mobile. You can go anywhere with it, really. And I really loved the way I could just sit there and just vibe out for hours on end making something. It was very the minute details and the patience to do all of it requires you to sit down for long periods of time, which can be difficult for someone like me, ADHD or whatever you want to call it. But I'm a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, and I've been clean and sober for 3.5 years. What I've found by doing jewelry is that it has been very healing for me, as that I can sit there and work on these pieces and heal myself, but also knowing that it's going to be on someone's head, like residing on their ears. In between their ears is their mind, and their body. To me, that's real special. I have a deep connection with that process. I actually use a lot of technology because I am a designer, and so my stuff's very contemporary compared to what they do. I use lasers. I use lathes. I also use 3D printers. So a lot of computer software goes into my work, but my work, I take my, Diné, Hopi, Aquinnah Wampanoag, and Tohono O'odham. I take all 4 of those and I put them together to create my pieces, and they've all got deep meaning for me, and it has been an incredible journey of seeing just how well it's been received by people, and I'm just still kind of amazed that I'm sitting here with these people right here who I really look up to and think that they do stellar work, and I feel like I'm just barely starting, but it's been fun. It's like I said, for me it's very healing.
You're downplaying yourself. He has some really fabulous lightning bolt earrings. You should check his work out. Tania, tell us a little bit about your journey.
For me, jewelry was something that was super important since I was a teenager. I wanted to show where I came from, and I wanted to show my identity. And so origin story is I could have my moccasins or a vest, but that was not really fashionable for me because, you know, you're a teenager, you don't want to look, you know, like traditional, you want to look fun. And so I started doing jewelry when I was a teenager, you know, just playing around with beads and stuff like that. And then I went on to learn how to tan hides, and that's what gave me really the cultural confidence to go to art school. And I ended up going to the Institute of American Indian Arts, where I was able to explore not only my identity, but also processes, and that's where I met my mentor, Carrie Atumbi. And it was really like a beautiful journey of like questioning everything and exploring processes and also exploring history. And I know that like jewelry is such a powerful tool, you know, to, you know, you show up in a room and you have these objects that are adorning your body, and there's so much history in them and there's so much power in them, and it really brings out, you know, your beauty. And for me, I wanted to create that for others, and I really wanted to imbue my culture, my journey, and like use materials from the north. So oftentimes I process all the materials that I use in my jewelry, whether it's like caribou hair or antlers and horn or hides. And not only is it, you know, medicine because of the material itself, but it's also medicine because of the relationship I've had to build in my community to have access to all this wild material. And I think that's a huge part of healing also, is like reaching out to your community and creating relationships. So for me, it's not only the jewelry, but it's also the relationships you create before making it and after, when you send it to whoever's going to wear it.
I love that. Tiffany.
Hi. I started my art with weaving. My family is weaving. All my aunties, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, so they're very involved with weaving. And my mom, she weaves nahin and raven's tail. So I started learning those designs and techniques. And that's done with, it used to be done with mountain goat wool, but now we have access more to like merino wool. So the weavings depict like raven's tail is very geometric, and it's woven left to right, and the designs are very beautiful, and it's a really old style of weaving. Actually, it wasn't practiced for over 100 years in the communities of the Northwest Coast, and it was revitalized like around the 80s. So I was a weaver for 10 years, and then I learned nahin weaving, which is a form line textile. So it is not only weaving horizontally, but it's also vertically and braiding, and so you can create these beautiful curves and circles. So I wove for 10 years, and then I moved back to the East Coast, where my dad's community is from, and I wanted to incorporate something from his community into my art, because I had been, you know, so heavily involved in my Haida side. I felt like there was an imbalance in my art, so I started beading, which I did learn when I was little in the community. We had little workshops in Aquinnah, but that was like so long ago, and I learned loom weaving or loom beading at that time, but then I branched out into like fringe earrings, and I kind of just felt really comfortable with the beads. And my family on my mom's side was like, oh no, she's gonna get addicted to beads now. So, and I did, but when I started incorporating the weaving designs into the beadwork is really when I found like that real balance between my two cultures. And yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's beautiful. Let's turn to this side of the room.
So my introduction came through my father, who is the person who taught me. So I'm a second-generation jeweler. But I was never somebody who was like, I'm going to become an artist. It was more, let me just spend time in the studio with him and let me find ways to help him, because I saw the amount of work that was needed. Last-minute buffing, polishing, carrying stuff to a booth, and that became more like a booth baby type of status and initiation into being part of the Indian market, which is so much embedded into Southwestern culture. And when I was there, I got more interested in museums and anthropology, and that really provided like another perspective of how the art market is so unique. And I didn't realize that it was something that I think is third in terms of arts economy after I think it's New York, and I don't remember which one's next, but then Santa Fe is third because of it. But being in that area, I loved it. So I was very academically and also just artistically connected through family and friends. I followed Jeremy when I was in high school. You know, it was just really, it's great to grow up with it. But when I started making it, because of the skills that I had, I entered it through creating language necklaces to really highlight the indigenous languages that we have in this country. And so I started off with these language pendants, and only using my tribe's language, but also other people's tribes, if they have a language that is written down. And that really opened it up to so many ideas of what jewelry can be, because there's not a lot of language. But it wasn't just using laser, which is important, and I've seen people do it, but it was using it in the way that, in Dinepazad, I think the way that the word writing is interpreted is that you follow the line. So I use a 2/0 or 3/0 blade to cut into a piece of metal, and I'm basically drawing or following the line of these words. So it's intentional to make it affordable and also accessible to other indigenous people. As I got more involved with the work, thankfully I have the guidance of my father, Victor Beck, and my mother beside me, because that was basically your family. Your family introduces you to something that you inevitably take on as a whole. His understanding of prayer, but also using really just the knowledge that we have as Diné, using the 4 sacred mountains in the jewelry, using natural stones, but I prefer to use stones that are from the Southwest, because that's where our mountains and our stones are connected to that area. But it's embodying, yes, the culture, but really the knowledge of that this is the jewelry. It's taken from the stones. It's not so much the silver and the metal aspects, which really allow it to be so many things for each of us, but it does bring back the very essence of all of those networks that had gone through the Southwest to South America. It really embodies the fact that networks had to happen in order for us to get to where we are today. So the work that I do really tries to allow that growth to happen, because I still feel like, as a person who's been doing this, I think since I've been 13, I've only been doing this for the past 10 years. And I think the growth and the journey that you allow yourself to go through in that time period, that I've gone through in that time period, has just begun. I'm really thankful that I get to be among people who do make jewelry and spend that time with themselves, and then allow that to be a future belonging to people. And I think that's what makes jewelry making so amazing.
Yeah, it never stops. Love that. And Jennifer.
Let's see, where do I begin? I, like Tiffany, started my jewelry, what led to the jewelry, with weaving. I wanted to do something to honor my Tlingit grandmother, who couldn't practice her culture. She was in a residential school, and in her adult life, she didn't practice a lot of her Tlingit heritage. So I wanted to do something to revitalize that within my own immediate family. And so I'm originally from Yakutat, Alaska. It's a small town of about 600 people. And I started with spruce root basket weaving. And the Tlingits there were really known as the best spruce root weavers because of the sandy beaches we have there, and you can get these really long roots, and they're great for weaving. And I learned to do that, but it didn't really capture my interest. Like I was like, I mean, it's amazing and it's hard, and I appreciate, you know, the people who weave and all the work that they put into it, but it didn't really capture me. And I kind of felt like, okay, I learned how to do it. What's next? Like, what am I gonna do? And so I had this opportunity to apprentice with Nicholas Galanin and his father, David Galanin, in metalwork. And I didn't necessarily feel drawn to it originally. It was just like, oh, I have this opportunity, you know, I'll try it, I'll give it a shot. And once I started doing it, I say I'm obsessed, but I think going back to Jeremy, it was like just and probably for the rest of you, like creating, you have just the freedom to create. There's kind of no boundary, really. I mean, you can make one thing over and over, or, you know, you can just get this idea, and it's like, ooh, what can I make, and what can I... So that's what's really got me into it. And being able to create metal pieces that tell a story. I like to incorporate Tlingit formline design, but adding kind of more. When I first started, I looked at what many of these mostly male artists in, you know, where I'm from, carving was more, the men did the carving traditionally. But I looked at these, the bracelets and earrings that they did, and a lot of it was kind of repeat patterns or taking something that someone did before, just because they would use like eagle, raven, frog, like different clan moieties and put them into their patterns. And I felt like I had to do what they did. And the one story I like to tell, or one little instance with my teacher, Dave. I was like, I've never seen a formline spider. And he's like, do it. He's like, you can do whatever you want, just do proper formline. So it's like, oh, and then it was just like, boom. After that, I was like, I don't know, I felt like I could do whatever, you know, and yeah, I just love it.
Wow. Well, so it's very clear from all of you that material is very important, and I think that's the same for all Indigenous artists in general. Is material is pretty much everything. Like I'll compliment someone on their earrings, they'll be like, it's copper. Like they're just so excited to tell me what it is. And they're like, it's beads from the 18th century. Like they're just material is so important to us as a community, and so I want to learn a little bit about how you guys go about procuring your materials, and maybe how that's specific to where you're based, or maybe do you draw from materials that are very prominent in your space? Or so tell us a bit about that. Jeremy, I guess we could go back in the line.
This is perfect for me to start because my work, as of today, I don't use anything natural yet. I have a collection of stones that were given to me. I just don't know how to work with them just yet. I can't wait to start, fiddling around with them and whatnot. But right now, what sells, because that's what we do, right, is acrylic. It's plastic. It's kind of weird, and wood. So the machine that I use is a 40-watt laser that cuts out my digital illustrations into wood and acrylic. There's lots of different types of cast acrylic that I use, and I tend to use colors and finishes that look not natural, and it catches on. People dig it, and I really don't know why people want to wear plastic jewelry, but it's a thing, and they like the really long, obnoxious ones. I don't wear any of this stuff, but I love designing it, and I love doing photo shoots and putting it on people. And it's like, wow, that looks really cool, But I wouldn't. I tried wearing a pair, and I'd look ridiculous. But I don't yet have worked with metals. I'm really anxious to start working with metals and a few other types of material that I will start very soon. I have the stuff, I just need to find the time. And that's one thing I think all of us probably battle throughout our careers, is finding the time to not only fulfill orders that have already been placed, but working on new material. And then I actually am not a jewelry designer per se. I'm a brand identity designer, and I design apparel, and so I do this kind of on the side, and I wish I could do it all the time, but I just can't. So I've hired people to start helping me now, which to me has been amazing, because I'm able to teach other people to do what I do and show them that you can do this as well, and that they've found that it's also healing for them too. The act of sitting there and putting something together with your hands and having good thoughts and good intentions, and then making it for sale for someone to buy and wear, there's something about that that's very spiritual. Especially us being Indigenous artists, we put our heart and soul into these. So what I've really enjoyed is teaching other people how to do what I do, and not only showing them how to make the work, but also how the commerce aspect of it works as well. Teaching them how to make a website, teaching them how to build a social media, account, and just really showing them how you can make a living doing this. Because I only been doing this for a few years, and if it took me this long to get on a panel, it could take you too, I just really want to share that, and I really don't think that I don't want to be the type of artist that hoards knowledge and materials. I actually want to share people and copy me, because I really think we need more designers, native designers and Indigenous designers out there. So if you see something that I'm doing and you want to copy it, then do it. Maybe you do it better than me. But I really feel that we need more and more and more people doing this, not just us five. But yeah.
Well, to go back to your point about the acrylic and I find that really interesting, because you might not think of plastic as something that's like an indigenous material. Like, we tend to use more organic or found materials, but I think of also something like ribbon work. It's kind of the same thing. It's you're making art out of something that has been, it's just here now. We didn't come up with it, but you're going to put your twist on it. And that I love. I think that's cool.
One of the things I do when I get these materials is I use every bit of it. As natives growing up, I think we do that with everything, though. Like, nothing goes to waste, And so I have all these fine things. Like, I'll have a sheet. They come in sheets, and I'll fill the entire sheet. And you have to clean all that stuff, too. But I'll have they're called findings. I'm learning about jewelry stuff. But I have all these findings, and I'm like, now I look like a total crafter, because I have all these, like, little compartments, and, like, but I hired people to sort them out by color and design, and so it's all this plastic though, but I don't waste it, none of it. There's some photos right there, all those little pieces, I make sure that they all get used and nothing gets thrown away, because we don't need any more of that stuff in the trash. So, but like I said, I'm really excited to start working with natural material.
Well, Tania, I know material is very important to you. We've had many discussions. So tell us a bit about the materials you use and why they're sort of important to you to use in your work.
Yeah, I love finding the materials. I usually use a lot of antique and vintage beads in my work, and that started, I think it was when I finally found good vintage beads was in, I think, 2015, and that's when I was in Venice, Italy, and I found some like super old beads in Murano, and it changed my life because if like it takes so long to do beadwork, and if you end up using like a poor quality bead, the shine on it can like rub away and stuff like that. And I was like, I don't want to spend 20 hours on a piece just for it to like disintegrate in my hands because of my natural oils on my fingers. So I really like started searching for the high quality materials, and that was part of the journey, and understanding how beads are made and how all of these were like handmade and the chemical used to create them, and how some of them have not been created since like 150 years, and how special it is because of how they were also used in trading in North America, and also like dentalium shells. Like I love history attached to materials, and incorporating that in my work is my way of speaking about our history. And of course, like all the natural materials that I process is something that's super important. High tanning was a major thing for me. It was also super important for revitalization purposes and bringing this work to light, and how important it is for us to practice it, especially in Canada and in the States. Because only elders were doing it. Again, there's huge knowledge gap that happened because of residential schools. And so it was, people were calling it a dying art. And so I wanted to make sure that we no longer labeled that. So I've been tanning hides for 10 years, teaching a lot of people, because that's part of, I feel that's part of what we do, is always passing on that knowledge. So yeah, those are some of the materials that I love using, and I love pairing it with silver and gold and diamonds and stuff like that. I was like, just for fun. Those are way easier for me to find than the rest of my materials, but it's part of the adventure. And I think also I really geek out on provenance and like knowing where things come from, and I keep on digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and I just really appreciate knowledge and being able to share it with others. That's my
Can you
passion.
take us through briefly just how long the hide tanning process takes? Because when you look at something like this, obviously the beadwork's amazing, but to me, like also the hide is art in itself. And so can you tell us a bit about how you get it from, the animal to a piece, basically?
Yeah, so hides is like leather, but instead of using chemicals to process it, it's using lots of grease elbow and like natural materials. So from the time you get it, usually like up north, we do lots of subsistence hunting. So we people hunt for their families and such. And usually I'll ask hunters for the hide, for some specific bones on the animal and the brain. And I'll make tools out of the bones to tan the hide, and then we use the brains because it has it's really fatty and has a specific enzyme that helps break down the fiber in the skin of the animal. And it's a huge process of like cleaning the skin, taking off all the hair, taking off all the flesh until you just have, just the skin and nothing attached to it. And after that, you use the brain to soften it. So it's a lot of soaking it and then smoking it, twisting it, drying it. That can take 3 weeks, 2 weeks if you're like constant. So usually I'll have to tan moose hide, which is ginormous. Like I've had moose hides that are like 8 feet by 7 feet, like that's the average size, and then smaller caribou hides. And that's what I call the canvas of our culture, because that's just to start putting the work on it. You first have to spend over a month working on the material to be able to create any work on it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of hard work, but at the end it's very beautiful. I love the juxtaposition of that. Tiffany, tell us a little bit about sort of the materials you use and maybe their relevancy to where you're based. And
Well, I use glass delica beads, size 11 and size 15. They are like cylindrical beads, so the designs I'm using have a lot of straight lines. So I really like that cylindrical bead, so I can create like the straight line, and I have to make sure that all the beads are very precise, the same size, and don't have any chips in them. And definitely I have to use my eyes and make sure, that they have integrity. And I find that like the newer delica beads are actually losing, I think because of the demand. There's so much like demand for them. They're kind of losing quality, so it's nice to hear about these vintage beads. But I really do like that cylindrical bead, but I found that the smaller size delica beads are a lot more consistent, but they're harder to see the imperfection in the bead if there is one. So I have to really pay attention and make sure. I also use like the brass findings and a little brass piece at the end, because I feel when the fringe is hanging, that weight of the brass like gives it a more of a flow feeling. Yeah, I mostly work with that, and then the thread is also important, that it's good quality thread, and a lot of the threads that you can like fray and yeah, and you have to make sure when you're like going through the glass bead that the thread isn't being cut, because glass can be sharp. Yeah, so.
And I feel like your fringed earrings are a big signature of your work, and I've always wondered how you get like how do you map out that earring so that it has that,
Yeah.
I'm stupid, I don't know.
No, I use graph paper and I graph it out, and I'll graph out a design and then I'll bead it, and then I'll notice, because it doesn't always translate from the graph to the bead work. I'll notice something that doesn't look right, and then I'll tweak it. So I'll make several one-sided pairs or one-sided earrings before I really perfect the design, and this is the one that works, and I'll create the pair. But yeah, I always graph it out first.
How long does it take you to do like a pair? Like, do you work really quickly, or do you take your time?
I take my time, especially because I have to make sure like none of the beads have any chips. And I probably should start wearing like a magnifying glass with these smaller beads, because I'm just like thinking I can see everything. But and my eyes are pretty good so far. But yeah, so it'll take me up to 12 hours to do a pair, like start to finish. But I always take into consideration the time I use to, graph it out, and then keep, perfecting the design. And then also, I feel like the designs that I use have been used by so many people. They don't belong to me. They've been developed by our ancestors and recreated by, many people. And so I feel like the history of the art goes into that value in time that, people have been working with these designs.
Love it. Nanibaa, so I know you use a lot of natural stones, so tell us a bit about, and I know you're very intentional about trying to find stones that are in your region, so tell us a little bit more about your sourcing process and what you like to use. And
well, it's been recent that my move to Tucson has allowed me to have more access to so many vendors now because of the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show in January. She's nodding her head, she knows. It's an incredible resource now, and I encourage everybody here on this panel, if you need a place to stay, you're welcome to stay with me. It's been a space where last year I opened my my eyes more to, more labradorite, more rubies, more emeralds, but in strand form. My materials, when it comes to natural, is thankfully I know of vendors in the area to where I can go travel to, but also my dad introduced them to me when I was a kid, and we just always stop in Gallup and Flagstaff and Kingman and find different spaces. I know now, when it comes to sourcing the turquoise especially, it's not going to always be perfect. You have to find the people that you trust. I made the mistake of buying about $200 worth of turquoise that was said to be natural. Turns out it was stabilized. And so, it's thankfully I grew up with knowing the feel, the look, and the texture of what turquoise looks like. So I really prefer to have the type of turquoise that has those textures. I have these earrings with natural turquoise, and I love the way that they show the story of where they came from in the ground, from the earth. Also, it's important to have that natural element because in our culture, we say that they say that the Diné is the ancestors or the Dine, the holy people, they know where you are if you wear your turquoise. So that's why it's always important for me to have turquoise on at all time. And sourcing it and making sure that it is within the area is different now than how my dad told me the prevalence of the 1970s turquoise. It was a huge craze for that reason. It was everywhere. But now having that understanding of what good turquoise looks like and trying to find it. And I'm thankful that my dad, he's since passed, he left me a lot of turquoise and coral and strands that I have, but at the same time I use it sparingly because one, he took all the good parts and then left the smaller parts for me to kind of work with, but thankfully I'm really good with working with small turquoise. But he did give me an understanding of, one, turquoise is important to have, but when you come down to the other three stones, you have abalone, white shell, and jet. I like to use Aquinnah jet, although I know the most of the jet that's available is coming from Pennsylvania. Abalone, more than likely it's coming from China, although the coastal areas is where we had most of our sources of abalone. White shell is, I don't think it's natural from the North America, but in lieu of using white shell, I use pearls. So that's why this necklace has pearls in it. So it's amazing to be back in the Southwest. I lived in North Carolina and New York for a total of 6 years, upstate New York in Ithaca. So having to go online and source it was so different from what I'm familiar with. But now that I'm in Tucson, back in AZ, it's been it's just been great. I get to see the turquoise. I'm more tactile when it comes down to it, but that's also why I'm jeweler. I like messing with things with my hands. I like feeling the textures and even getting cuts and bruises and broken fingers. But
well, is turquoise an easy material to work with? Do you really, let's say you're trying to get just a small piece, how do you go about shaping turquoise?
Well, I have a pixie wheel, but also I need to upgrade to a king cab. But it really comes down to all the turquoise is different. Some of them are harder than others, like this right here. Oh, this is not, I take it back. This is Kingman turquoise. Fox turquoise is a little bit harder. That's coming from Nevada. It really depends on where you source the turquoise from. And also, when you do cut into the turquoise, is it going to be along the vein, the matrices of that turquoise, which if you are trying to be delicate with it, maybe you want to cut in an area where you're not going to have it fall apart, especially when it's like a spider web. So I love them, they look great, but sometimes when you're just ready to set it in and the metal hits it, and that little piece of that spider web comes off, and then you think, wait, I can put silver dust in this, or I can put gold dust in this, and then it kind of just adds a little bit more. So there's all these little small tricks that my dad taught me, and thankfully, though he's not around anymore, I do have people that I can call on to have help. Tania's mentor, Carrie Itumbi, also Ray Scott and other colleagues of my father, and also people I've got to know, because there's a camaraderie of people who are willing to help out and have tricks be taught, and I'm really thankful. But when it comes down to the materials, that's why my dad had so many small pieces. It's because they kept on breaking, I'm sure. But yeah, it's definitely a skill, but also patience. Patience above all. Patience. I think that's something that I thrive on, because I can be by myself a lot and just zone into the work. Of course, audiobooks and podcasts really do help. So.
Yeah, good things require a lot of hard work. So. And Jennifer, I know you use a lot of copper, and so tell us a bit about, I feel like your work is very material-based as well, so tell us a bit about your journey in sourcing and all that.
So traditionally, carving was done on wood, as you would see like in the totems from the Northwest Coast. And as, I don't know how long ago, but when coins were introduced and there was lots of silver, we still call it carving, even though it's on metal and it's engraving. But we refer to it as carving. And a lot of the wood carvers, they started carving on the silver and sold it back to the non-native people. And so it was mostly carving on silver. And when I saw that, I thought, again, learning, I thought that's what I needed to do too. And I was like, everything has to be shiny silver, shiny silver. And the more that I, worked with my mentor, Dave, and learned that copper had a richer history in our region with the, we call it the Tana, but the copper shield. Those were, from what I gather, because I'm really kind of obsessed with their origin, but from what I understand is at least in Yakutat, where I'm from, the Tlingit people traded from like ship sheathing, the copper sheathing off the ships. They wanted the copper and they traded those for hides. And the copper shields, the Tana, was a sign of stature and wealth to the chiefs. So the more, it's like I thought, well, copper has a lot more history in where I'm from. And so I've started doing a lot more copper work. And I really I'm not like a shiny jewelry person. I like things to feel more organic, look more organic. So I really enjoyed starting to work more with copper. We could do the copper patinas, and I still had a lot of my spruce roots that it's a lot of work to, go collect them and prepare them for weaving. So, of course, I didn't throw them away. I'm not going to waste them, and I've kept them, and I still have quite a bit. And so I like to incorporate like spruce roots into my engraved like cuffs or earrings. I like to incorporate some of the antique trade beads that I find, that I come across. So I mostly work with copper and silver. I do some gold, mostly upon request. I do incorporate abalone shell, and kind of pair that with the different metals as well, and sometimes some antler. But yeah, it's mostly copper is my favorite.
And I've been wanting to ask you, because your jewelry, it could be quite large scale. Like in some, it's almost like armor. And some, like, I think of your amazing, I don't know what the term is, but it's not a breastplate, but it's quite large. And so, where did that sort of inspiration come for you to work in sort of a larger scale with your jewelry?
Boy, I'm not sure. I think because I do like to make big pieces, and I do like to make big pieces that do, and a lot of people do say armor. I don't really even have a description for it myself. I like to make things that you feel like it's protection, but there's also I do a lot of floral, a lot of I add a lot of wild rose pattern and a lot of forget-me-nots. So I like to make really bold pieces, but that also feel kind of the feminine touch to it or something, but I'm not really sure where that stems from. I really enjoy just working with metal, seeing what can I create, and just to kind of telling a little bit of a story with it. And mostly just, I want to draw attention to the art form as far as Tlingit formline design. And I want people to see that, it's not something of the past or a dying art, that, we're still here and we're making amazing contemporary things.
Yes, and I was gonna have a whole section on that, and I just realized how has it already been an hour? I was just getting started. So I do want to leave a few minutes for questions, though, because I have a lot more for you. But in case there was something really interesting to you guys that you wanted someone more to touch on, or would love to leave a few minutes for that. If there's any questions, yes. Hello?
We actually are a mic short, so may I? Well, I was going to borrow yours in case there's a question.
Yeah.
Sorry. Because we need it for the recording. Go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you, Bella. Thank you, panelists. I kind of wanted to hear from a couple of you your thoughts of non-natives wearing your jewelry, or non-natives wearing native designs, apparel, adornment, etc., and why that's important, or your thoughts.
I'll jump in. No. So one reason I do like to do a lot of the floral patterns is because when I first started out and I was doing my first few markets, and there would be non-native people come to my booth and they'd be like, well, I can't wear it. Can I wear that? I can't. And so I thought, if I did the floral, it's still reaching a broader audience. And I feel like it was important for me, in my mind, to reach a broader audience so that they do, other people do see that we're still here creating. And as far as for me, in the designs that I do when I add formline design, there are clan crests that they're very specific and to each clan. And I do not make those designs unless I have permission. They ask me, can you do a custom piece? This is my clan, and I have permission from them. But when I do other formline, I try to add, I'll do maybe a floral pattern with adding a butterfly that has formline design. And to me, I would hope that, I would love for anyone to wear that and share the art and appreciate it and share it with other people. I guess I've got to, I'm all for it,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I think I would say usually if for specific reasons, whether it's ceremony or family and things like that, most pieces that are not for a native audience usually are not for sale. So rule of thumb is if it's out here on the market, if it's on our online store, if it's in the stores and there's designs on it, it's meant for anyone, everyone. Specifically, if you appreciate Indigenous art, I think it's way more important for people to support Indigenous artists instead of going to huge brands who ripped off our designs, thinking it's more comfortable to do so. Because sometimes when they do that, they actually take ceremonial designs and put them on there. But usually, if you're dealing with an Indigenous artist, they wouldn't be putting those very strict rules for sale. So that's my rule.
I think that's also where I think there's so much what is it, the National Library of Congress. They have images of old images from the 1800s and early 1900s. Those photographs, and this is, I mean, yes, they're free to the public to use. That's where, why support images or people who took these images in a way that you don't know the circumstances of how that was procured, but also it's such a gaze that isn't our own. It's a gaze upon us of how we fit into their perspective of what indigeneity was then, whereas indigeneity is ever present. And when we think about the word traditional, so often that's provided into that time slot of 1800s to early 1900s, when in actuality, when you think of the word traditional, it implies continuity and adaptation. And that's what we've done so much, that resiliency is seen on this stage in all these different tribes and representations. So I think that when we do make these items for obviously these and also indigenous people, in our minds, we're seeing it on our friends and relatives in ceremony, graduations, writing their PhDs, and putting them out there so that we can eventually see them in a format that is so new, like Res Dogs or Vogue magazine. So I think it's impressive that it is a good question, but it's also something that it's exciting to see the way that it continues to thrive, and I think the way that Jennifer and Tania described it is a really good representation of who can wear it. Anyone can wear it. I would love to see more earrings on men, though. Have you not seen the old images? Because someone comes to my table and they're like, do you make anything for men? I'm like, these long-ass earrings work perfectly for you. Also, Navajo, like these Navajo hoops, it's actually Diné hoops. Men, they wore them. And they wore the squash blossoms. They wore everything. So let's bring that back.
I think also when people are willing to invest in the authentic art that Native people are creating, there's also an element of education in that. So, and you're not buying from inauthentic sources anymore. You're learning about somebody's specific culture, and it's really important. And for me with the weaving styles, it's such a strong thing in my family that I'd like to share, and I want it to continue, and not just the aesthetic of it, but learning about what the value of these designs were in terms historically. So if you're willing to really invest in that work, you're gonna want to know about it. So learning and sharing and preserving those stories and stuff. So yeah, thank you.
The byline to my brand is Indigenous design for everyone. So I try to make sure that my work is accessible to everyone. But like my contemporaries mentioned, there's some stuff that is kept for traditional purposes and should be left alone. And I don't dwell or mess around with anything like that, because something could happen to you. We're very spiritual people, and you never know, mess around with something and it might come bite you. So, I think we're all very conscious about that kind of stuff, so we leave it alone, and your spiritual manners, if you will.
We had another question. Yeah.
My question is a follow-up to this. In the idea of selling to non-natives, and it may be getting people in trouble, you may not want to answer this, but how do you feel about working with gallerists and shops and things like that are selling indigenous work? Because I know that a number of people don't really, there's a whole group of people who don't really want to work with galleries, who will do the fairs. And is that something that is in any of that bothers any of you people, or how do you feel about that? And the other question is to the men, and appropriate to Vogue, I guess, what are you wearing?
Well, I'll jump on that gallery question. I think there's a lot of galleries actually that we do sell to, especially in Santa Fe, Scottsdale, the southwestern area. I'm not as familiar with too many places. I know Faust Gallery was huge for procuring a lot of the Vogue magazine images, especially one with Leonardo DiCaprio and Lily Gladstone and Jennifer. So it was. It really comes down to, I think, just the audience that gallery has. Galleries run that gamut of being either kitschy and fine art. And the places that I'm familiar with, especially when it comes to fine art, Waddell, Faust, King Galleries, and of course the museums, the Heard Museum, Will Wright. It really comes down to finding those spaces. I'm not familiar with too many places here, but I do know that when we do come to these spaces, it is through the shows like the NMAI fine art shows, or I try to do the other non-native shows. I know, what was it, ACC is one that I'm going to try to apply to more, but the Smithsonian Craft Shows, I've done that one too. So it's just, I think there's so many more galleries on the west of the Mississippi that when it really comes down to, really good work. But I'm on, is there a Faust type of gallery here in New York City? Yeah. I don't know. I think it just comes down to the person, the character, the people.
Relationships.
And the relationships. Yeah. Jennifer, I think, would be the person who probably has more information.
Well, what comes to mind is relationships, because of course we want, to sell our stuff in galleries, right? But one example I have. The very first, I think, gallery I sold to was Steinbrook Native Gallery in Seattle. And the owner is non-native, but she supports a bunch of Canadian artists as well as Alaska Native artists. And she cares about the art. She cares about her relationships, and we have a wonderful relationship. But one example of maybe a bad relationship, I had someone reach out to me and they wanted to sell my work, but they're like, I want 20 of these and 30 of these. And okay, you're not understanding who I am, because everything I do is one of a kind and handmade by me. I'm not going to mass produce that. Or to me that was mass producing, but I'm sorry, I can't make 20 of those for you this week. And that person didn't want to work with me anymore. So it's just about the relationships, and do they respect you? Do you respect them? And of course, I'm happy to have my stuff in different galleries.
I'm going to give you back your mic so you can answer what you're wearing too.
I can go a little rundown. Well, Tania just gave me this backstage, so lucky me. Gorgeous. Thank you, Tania. This is Carrie Atumbi, who's Tania's mentor. This is Pat Pruitt and Jamie Okuma collab. This is Maria Samora, and this is Jamie Okuma. So all Indigenous today. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm already naturally loud, so I don't need a microphone. Just a quick question, and I'm hoping you can answer it in maybe a minute or less. I know that's tough, but what are your biggest art influences? And it doesn't have to be in your current, in your current profession, but who is your biggest art influence?
For me, right off the bat, Jamie Okuma. My friends, Pat Pruitt, Virgil Ortiz, Bethany Yellowtail, everyone on this panel. There's too many to name, actually. Those biggest, I'd say Jamie for sure. She's my design hero and friend.
I would look to my mentors. So definitely Carrie Atumbi, the late Judy Lafferty, Lucianne Yakalaya. Those are, my big inspirations.
I think my mom, Evelyn Vanderhoop, and my grandmother, my nanny, Dolores Churchill.
For sure, my father, Victor Beck Sr., followed by Connie Sosika-san. And so many other metalsmith matriarchs out there.
Does it have to be a person? I like looking at artifacts and looking at just different pictures of old things and trying to bring them to new life to maybe the designs.
Christian?
Probably Joan Didion. She's my favorite writer, and I think I read her every day. So.
And then selfishly, I have one more. What motivates you to create?
My 12-year-old autistic son.
I was like, that's just how I have to live. So that's, will to live is to create.
Yeah, I agree with that. And my family.
I think it's it's that feeling in the studio when you're placing all of your focus and everything into a piece. It's that when it completes, and then you look at it and you're thinking, I made this. I think that's the feeling that I chase and that I love the most.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you. I like being in the studio space and just creating. I feel like I'm kind of obsessed. It's unfortunate that I have to leave my shop sometimes.
And then Christian?
Probably curiosity. I'm very nosy, and I want to know things that I don't know. So it just makes that just always wanting to learn more and meet new people and stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't know how to do anything else.
Cool. Well, I think that about wraps it up. But thank you so much for coming, everyone. I hope we learned a little bit.